We got a Power Pack show. Tony and Drew, they'll be stopping by in just a wee little bit. We're going to be checking in with Olympic and World Cup mogul skier Landon Wendler, who is in town. He's stopping by about 4 o'clock. And I think Mike Deemer may even stop by to talk a little Kentucky Derby, which is happening on Saturday. But without further ado, from Keep Routt Wild, we've got Mr. Cedar Beauregard. Cedar, pull that mic close to you. Don't be afraid of it. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm excited that you took the time to have us here.
Well, thank you for swinging by. We hear your vocal stylings all the time on these airwaves, Cedar. So it's good to have you once again in person. And from Routt County, we've got Andrew Dean. Andy, how are you, man?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
Because I'm dyslexic and can't remember your long title, what is your title with Routt County?
It's a mouthful. I work for the Noxious Weed Program, and I'm the Education and Enforcement Technician.
Yeah.
It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. So, what exactly does that entail? You talk noxious weeds. So if you're driving around the county and you see a field of white top or other noxious weeds, do you go write a ticket? What do you do?
No, we don't. We don't. We do have a whole enforcement process. However, our primary goal is to educate the community and landowners on their responsibilities under the Colorado Noxious Weed Act and the county weed ordinance. And basically that means that as a landowner or land manager, you're responsible to control noxious weeds on your property to prevent them from impacting wildlife values, agricultural values, recreational values in our county. And that applies statewide, obviously. Yeah.
Well, and we've heard Cedar talk about noxious weeds in the Keep Routt Wild ads, and I think a lot of us, including myself, was like, oh, I never thought of that. So give us a little bit more in depth. I mean, you do it, Cedar, on the radio ad about why weeds are bad. Why should we worry?
Well, as humans, we just have so much impact on the landscape, and the weeds are like a footprint we leave, but it's a footprint we leave that grows. I mean, I like to think of it as like a pandemic on the landscape. And so if we just let it go, and where I'm really concerned is where we let it leave the urban boundary. So like right now, there's some white top right outside the studio here, and if it creeps up the hill into where there's wintering ground for elk, or it kind of gets out of our zone of control, out of our interest zone as humans. We like to treat our yards and our fields and our roadways, but where it escapes, that's where the wildlife really feels it.
Because that's technically their territory. That's their habitat.
And as an animal, I would think that they think of the weed as trash. We see trash, they would see the weed as trash. And it's non-native, so it outcompetes the native plants and vegetation. It becomes a monoculture, monolithic lands in it, and some of them don't have any nutrition value at all, or they haven't evolved with that. It's kind of like rabbits in Australia. It takes off and has no competing nature to it. No predators of its own, so it just can outcompete all of our native plants and really be disruptive.
All right. You want to add to that, Andy?
No, I would certainly say that noxious weeds degrade the habitat as a whole,
right.
and any system they're in. And as Cedar said, you can end up with a monoculture. They tend to be less palatable for both wildlife and livestock. So you're growing something that's not giving as much nutritional value to whatever you're growing, whether that be beef or elk. And also a number of the noxious weed species we have are toxic. And our wildlife are pretty good at knowing what they can and can't eat in general terms. In drought years, they may eat things they wouldn't otherwise do. But things like hound's tongue, for example, can be really toxic to livestock and has negative impacts on wildlife. So there's lots of reasons we want to promote our desirable vegetation and disadvantage those weeds on our landscape.
So it's hard as just a person, our listeners out there, to know what's a weed and what's not. White top I've kind of figured out. And there's a few weeds you kind of are easy to figure out, but there's some out there that are really beautiful, and you're like, oh, look at those wildflowers. But they're not. They're weeds.
Absolutely. We have a large problem with oxeye daisy in North Routt County. That's an escaped ornamental, and people often think it's one of our native wildflowers, and it's not. So that's one of the roles of our program, is to help people understand what are and aren't weeds, how they can manage what weeds they have on their landscape, and maybe make better planting decisions. For example, if you're looking at your garden and you want a white flower rather than having oxeye, we can help you with choosing something else. The CSU extension here in town is also a fantastic resource that we have. And so that's what we see ourselves primarily, as a resource to help people manage the weeds, which is obviously a legislative responsibility, but also it's important just to maintain Routt County in the best condition we can.
All right, Andy, how did you get into this?
I guess I fell into it. I spent some time in natural resource management. I worked for Colorado Parks and Wildlife before this role, and in wildlife management and enforcement in Australia. But I think this is just part of a suite of important things that we can do to help our environment, and that's what I like to do. And obviously, I'm in the education, but also the enforcement space, and I've had a fair bit of time working in enforcement, and this is low-level enforcement as far as I'm concerned. We're really focusing on voluntary compliance and trying to help people to understand what their responsibilities are and what they can do and why that matters.
So you're the weed police.
I guess.
Yeah. I'm sorry. There's so many different directions we could go with this, Andy. And I'm old, but mentally I'm about 22. So Cedar, I know on the Keep Routt Wild ads, the PSAs that you guys have out there, they talk about the noxious weeds and where to go and find out more. Where can people go to find out what is actually a weed? And then I'll go back to you, Andy. We'll talk about how we can control them and what we can do. Because if we all do a little bit, we can help the whole county here and beyond.
Yeah, there's our keeproutwild.com. We've got a weed page that links to all the extension, like the Routt County Extension Office, and Andy would probably know more than I do on that page. But there's lots of resources out there. One that's really good is just Google Lens. You know, if there's a plant that you don't know, take a photo and that app identifies it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, whitetop is definitely a gateway weed. Like, it's really obvious. But what's scary is when you realize and see how impactful that one is, that's really noticeable, is how many there are out there that aren't noticeable that are really impactful. That once you start studying it, you know, there's all kinds of weeds that are in our drainage ways and the cheatgrass in our landscape. And, like, for example, driving from here to Oregon to ski camps, and you just see the vast monolithic cultures in places. And that's it's just really scary looking. You know, if you take the pandemic analogy, it's sick. It's a sick landscape. And what worries me is people don't like to spray, but that means they just let it get to the point where it's beyond a controllable level. So we really need to eradicate when we can. So I would just encourage people to take care of their immediate surroundings and maybe just a little beyond. You know, if you spray or eradicate to your property line, maybe look across the fence. And if you let it get across the fence, you know, it's not just their problem now, it's still your problem.
Right, because it'll come back.
Yeah.
They're weeds.
Yeah.
They're weeds. Andy, you want to add to that?
Yeah. I guess I would say that noxious weed management is important for all of us, but understanding the issue is the biggest hurdle. And we have a Routt County Noxious Weed Day coming up on May 30th. It's from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the county shop there on 2300 County Shop Road. It's a free event. The CSU Extension will be there. The Master Gardeners will be there. Our team will be there. We can help with weed ID. We will help people calibrate their spray equipment. And we'll even give away up to 5 gallons of pre-mixed herbicide so people can go out and get a jump on doing control on their property. The other piece is sometimes there's an aversion to using chemical control in weed management, and I understand that. The Noxious Weed Act in Colorado mandates that we consider integrated weed or pest management. So looking at cultural controls, mechanical controls, biological controls, and chemical controls. So when people come to us, we can help them develop a weed management plan that is more holistic, and that can often assuage people's fears that the only thing we're going out there and doing is doing chemical control. In our rights of way along county roads, it tends to be chemical control, and that's because of the timeline and the space that some of our other controls are slower acting. So that's why we might do that in that public safety space.
And some weeds, if you do pull them out, you got to get them by the roots. You've got to, and a lot of weeds are armed and dangerous. They've got prickers and whatever. but also you can cause more of a spread because you've shaken the weed up and the seeds are now flying everywhere. There's some weeds I've heard, and I know enough to be dangerous, which is why you guys are here. There's some weeds you don't want to pull, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So tailoring your management to the specific weed species you have is very important, because mowing, for example, might be great for a white top before it flowers to deplete the reserves, and then we might plant reserves, and then we go back and spray later. That might be a great integrated management approach. But if you wait till musk thistle, Canada thistle, something like that flowers, then you go out and mow it down, all you're doing is proliferating the spread of that seed across the landscape. So knowing what the growth stage of what the plant is, number one, what growth stage it is, and then choosing the management action, but depending on that, is really important. And that's where the CSU extension, that's where our team can help. And I would echo, if you're looking at something, take a really good photograph of it.
Yep.
Bring in a sample. We can help with that as well. And there are some good. The Google Lens is great. Picture This is another application on your phone, which is fantastic. And I would say narrowing it down to at least the family group, that's a really good start.
Excellent. Where do people find this information here locally, regionally, and just on a national level? Like where can people go if they're thinking they've got weeds, what to do? Just get some self-help. The great thing now is my dad used to just point at the wall and go look at the Encyclopedia Britannica, go look it up. And now we've got that on our phone.
We do. We have the information at our fingertips. But if you want that more personal touch, 136 6th Street, Suite 103 is where we're at in the downtown Steamboat Springs. You can go to the county website and search noxious weeds. That'll take it to our website web page within the county website and give you additional resources. We have a Routt County weed management guide, which we give to folks. And we, during the off season in the winter, we do a winter weed class, which is a multi-session things where we take everything from weed ID through to planning, which I think is a fantastic resource. So if you're interested, we have the information. You just have to come get it from us.
Awesome. What is how do you talked about your job is to educate, it's low-level enforcement. How if you've got a landowner, a neighbor who isn't doing anything, what can you as your next door neighbor, you've got a third, I don't know, you've got an acre of land or more, and you're doing a good job controlling your weeds, but your neighbor isn't. What does someone do, especially maybe if there's an adversarial relationship there, which sometimes happens?
Well, the first thing I would say is always speak to your neighbor.
Yeah.
Good relationships across the fence are vital. If that doesn't exist, you can pick up the phone and call me, and I will follow up. You can also make a report anonymously through the CityView software on the Routt County website. Within the City of Steamboat Springs, you can make a report to them in that same way through their CityView platform. That sort of gets the ball rolling. Then we'll go out, we provide education resources and management guidance to the landowner. And then we have an expectation they'll tell us how they're going to manage the noxious weeds we've identified. If they do that, that's the end of the matter. It's fantastic. If they don't, then we start to go down our enforcement pathway and try to encourage them towards voluntary compliance.
Yeah. All right. What are we missing? What have we missed, Cedar? What else do we need to add to the weed conversation here?
The weed conversation. I just think just being aware of it and being conscious of our impact and what the weeds do to the landscape is huge. And if we take care of our immediate surroundings as the best we can, I think if we all chip in. I mean, to say that there's no weeds on your property is false. I could walk on any property in Routt County and find a noxious weed. And so it's just a matter of all of us getting out there and taking care of it when we can and keeping this landscape as beautiful and as unique as it can be.
And also a resource for the habitat, making the habitat able to feed our wildlife. Obviously, that's your
so for
point.
Example, if you got weed seeds in your socks and you go, on various bike rides through whatever weed it is, white top has a little sticky gummy weed that, bushes out and sticks to everything. That weed's spreading. So just, wash your bike periodically. If you're coming from an area, you're down in Moab and there's some weird thing on your, that just the canceling the vectors, right? We're working on a grant to eradicate the weeds on emerald, just because that's a high vector zone.
Yeah.
And just getting rid of the vectors, being conscious of it, eliminating it when it pops up, right when it pops up is way easier. It's like when you get the cold, if you can cut it, take a nap and kill it, you're done. Or if you let yourself get super sick, then you got to take out the wicked antibiotics and get chemical, So.
Awesome. All right. Andy, what do you want to add to that?
I didn't think I'd say this is an unusual season. Obviously, when our snowpack is low, and so we're starting to see a lot of our weeds coming up, early emergence. White top is already nearly ready to flower across the county. So if you had a weed management timetable, bring it forward about a month. It's really important. And I would just emphasize that sometimes in a difficult year, we're trying to conserve our financial resources, but just remember that we don't want to grow weeds. They do a phenomenally good job at monopolizing water and nutrients. And so investing in that control now can make sure that you're growing more desirable plants, more palatable vegetation for livestock and wildlife. So in a drought year, I would say the weed control is even more important.
Absolutely. And there's local companies, professionals that can help spray your yard, your whatever.
Yeah, there is. And you can contact our office and we can give you our commercial applicator list, and that's folks who are licensed through the Colorado Department of Agriculture and operate in Routt County to apply those pesticides, those herbicides. And they're going to do it safely per the label directions. They'll take care of all the paperwork. And then you can provide that to my office or to me when I come calling and let me know the great work that you did.
Awesome. And the Routt County website is?
You're going to catch me on the hop. Search Routt County in your search engine will pop up. If you want it, it's co.routt.co.us. And if you want to send me an email, it's weeds@co.routt.co.us.
Of course it is. And Cedar, Keep Routt Wild, your website, because you've got a bunch of information on there.
KeepRouttWild.com. Larry does a great job of keeping that up to date. We have a fantastic weed page that links to all these places, and we're super grateful of Andy's presence here and hoping to support him wherever we can.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming on and educating our listeners a little bit, and me, this unfrozen caveman DJ. Cedar, quickly, your boys, you're all ski racers. How was their season? One was off to DU, one was injured, right? What?
Yeah, Adrian last spring, not this spring, last spring broke his leg in Austria, unfortunately. And so he had a recovery season this year, did pretty well. I spent a few weeks in Europe with him, and we traveled the Fifth Circuit, super fun. And he's coming back strong. He had some really good races this spring. Cayman had some really good standout performances at DU, and he's excited for another season.
And Luke, your younger one?
Yeah, he's right there. He thinks he's as fast as they are. And
how old is he now?
He's 16 already. Well, 15. He just got his driver's permit. So
wow. Goes by quick.
Lots of skiing, and just like yourself, it's quite a ride.
It is. It's not cheap. But it's certainly fun. So Thank you guys for stopping by. Greatly appreciate it. We'll need to talk in the next couple of weeks because I think we need to promote your Weed Day.
Absolutely.
And we can do that. We've got the means. A big shout out, of course, to you guys for stopping by. We've got more to come. Don't you go anywhere. It is Harvey's Huddle. Thanks to our sponsor, Central Park Liquor, and the law firm of Bell and Pollock. You are tuned to KTYV Sports on FM 105.7, 97.7 on the FM dial, and on the World Wide Web at steamboatradio.com.